Hi, this is Lenny Cameron. I'm here with Jessica Strawser, and I'm super excited because this book is so suspenseful and fun and a million reasons why. And I'm going to tell you, Jessica, you wouldn't do this anyway. No spoilers, because I'm 85% of the way through the book right now.
I would never spoil my own book.
Oh, congratulations. The reviews on this book are fabulous.
Thank you so much. It's been a long time coming. This was sort of delayed a little bit to wait and see if COVID would pass, which it did not. So now it's out. So it feels like it's been a long time coming, and it's been extra nice to see the response after sort of sitting on this story for so long.
So tell our listeners here, our viewers here, a little bit more about A Million Reasons Why, and then I would love to hear where the idea came from, your inspiration for this story.
So A Million Reasons Why is the story of two adult strangers living, very different women living very different lives, a few states apart, hundreds of miles apart, who are linked by one of those mail-in DNA test kits as half-sisters. And for one of the women, she kind of did the test looking to see if anyone else was out there. She grew up with a single mom, never knowing her father. And so, she suspected that there was somebody else out there. She didn't know what she might find, but she went into the test, eyes wide open, had some really complicated reasons for taking this test, including a medical reason. And then on the other end of this, we have her half-sister Caroline, who's a busy working mom, mother of three in Cincinnati, Ohio, who grew up in what she sees as a very ordinary family, very close-knit family. She thinks, they have no secrets. They're very involved in each other's lives. And they have only taken the test as a Christmas gift all together, just on a lark, to see, what percentage Irish they are, and never ever would have dawned on them that there could be, somebody else out there. So they're completely blindsided, and the results immediately, no spoilers, as you said, chapter 1 pretty much turned her life upside down.
Yeah, so she has a half sister that she knew nothing about, which is where the book is going to go. So where did this idea come from? Where did the idea of this start?
I kind of just collect nuggets of ideas slivers of ideas that interest me. And I found again and again, I was really taken by these real life stories out there of people who have had an unexpected result from one of these DNA tests. I think it's really interesting that something that was created for fairly straightforward, maybe even seemingly innocuous reasons, became so widespread and accessible, and suddenly is having all of these unintended consequences. And there are so many amazing and strange stories out there in real life that it almost makes you not want to write fiction about it, because it's a truth is stranger than fiction kind of thing. What could I possibly invent that hasn't, happened to someone? I mean, there are towns where they've found out that a percentage of the families in the town were all fathered by the same OBGYN. I mean, there are things where if I wrote them into a novel, people would say, well, that's not believable.
Ridiculous.
But they're true. But yeah, I noticed that people fall into these two camps where, either they go looking and it's a blessing that they find what they're looking for, or they are completely caught off guard by these results. And I thought it would be interesting to craft a story around one half sister in each camp, and then have something happen that might make them start to switch stances. So where maybe the person who thought she wanted to pursue this starts to think maybe she shouldn't have done that. And maybe the person who was blindsided starts to think, maybe she deserved to know these things and wishes she had known these things all along. So, and then
there are secrets galore. Like I won't give any away, but there are secrets galore that people don't see coming. It's great. It's got some twists and turns to it.
Lots of layers.
Yeah. Let's take a quick peek at a review. You got a fabulous review from none other than Jodi Picoult, which is, wow, well done. Congratulations.
Oh,
and I love her description here. Sorry, what did you say?
I said she's my favorite. That
makes sense. for many of us. Yeah, what an amazing thing to get a Jodi review. And I thought she encapsulated it wonderfully. A fascinating foray into the questions we are most afraid to ask. What constitutes family? What are our obligations to those we love? Where does American healthcare fail the most? And what secrets are forgivable or unforgivable? And in this case, you need another reason to this. In case you need another reason to read this, there are two massive twists you'll never see coming. I think I've only made it to one of two so far. But I love that the reviews on Goodreads and Amazon are so positive. This book's been out for a couple of months now, and gripping, emotional drama, suspense-filled, and thought-provoking. Those are the key things that show up again and again in your wonderful reviews. And I completely agree. It's really thought-provoking. I find myself putting this down and going like, what would I do in that scenario?
I think that's exactly it. It really is a story that I think, because these sorts of things are happening to so many people, sometimes out of nowhere, I think it is the kind of, and I really think both half sisters have, they have very different viewpoints going into this, but very sympathetic, easy to relate to viewpoints. So I think it's a story that not only does it make you think about what you do in both of their shoes, but what you think you might do might change a few times over the course of the story.
That's a good way to put it. I love books that help you develop empathy and put yourself in someone else's situation or shoes. And this is doing that for me, like multiple times. To your point, I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, how would I react? Would I be that good about this? Would I be even worse than the characters dealing with it? And yeah, really thought-provoking.
I love writing, about themes and questions that I really don't know the answer to myself. So I was right there with you as I was writing it.
Maybe that's why you're able to change like the reader's opinion back and forth, because you didn't go in with a set point of view that one side is right and one side is wrong.
Absolutely. And I really think with characters and, there are a lot of moral dilemmas, I would say, in this story. And I really think there's very little black and white in the world. I see there's so much in shades of gray, I think, more than we even stop to think about sometimes.
So how much did the book change as you were editing it and it was going through different levels of revisions?
It changed the actual, in terms of what happens in the story, those two twists you mentioned, all of that was pretty intact from my first draft all the way through the revision process. But I think what really changed is the nuances of the surrounding relationships in the book. So not so much what happens between the sisters when they meet, not so much what's going to happen to the two of them together and separately by the end of the story, but their relationships with the other people in the story, their mothers, their husbands or ex-husbands. It was the surrounding, sort of the nuances and the surrounding relationships and how they were affected by the main plot threads. So really the subplots, I would say, kind of tightening up all of those threads was the main goal of most of the revision I did here.
That makes sense. And when you advise people, this is your fourth novel out there. And when you advise people, you've got such a following, you've got so many readers who love your work. When you advise writers like me who are earlier on the path, what advice do you give? You've done so much in your history where you teach classes, you've done Writer's Digest, the editor there. You have a world of experience here. Like, what do you advise folks?
Yeah, I think there's so much there's so much publishing advice out there, and there's so much advice even that you can get one-on-one. And a lot of times people, by the time they come to sit across the table from me at a conference, maybe they've already been through a bunch of agent critiques. Maybe they've even had an agent, but they haven't had any takers on their submissions. And they're really starting to have this crisis of, what to do and if they should keep persevering or changing paths. And I always think of this advice that I got from my own mom, which had nothing to do with writing, but it had to do with parenting. And it was when I had my first baby and I brought him home from the hospital. And of course you have that feeling where you think, why did they just entrust me with this baby? I have no idea what to do. I have no idea what I'm doing. It's so overwhelming and intimidating. And my mom said, my parents live out of town. So she was leaving, she had been there for a few days and she was leaving. And she said, you are the expert on this baby now. Like, you are the expert on him. And I really didn't fully understand or fully appreciate what she meant by that until months later. And what she meant by that is, you're responsible for this person, and you are going to be in these meetings with pediatricians, and you're going to be in these meetings with teachers. And there's going to be all these people who are professionals who know more than you do about child development and child health and everything else. But you're the one who knows your own kid. So you might not be an expert in any of those things, but like if your doctor keeps telling you everything's fine, but your gut keeps telling you something is wrong, you're the one who knows your baby. And that's really how I feel about manuscripts. Like if you have this manuscript that you've toiled over for a year or more, and you're getting all this feedback and you're having a hard time deciding what feedback to take and what feedback not to take, and all these editors or agents and you're thinking, well, this doesn't resonate with me, but they're the professionals. Well, they might be the professionals on the industry, but you know the heart of your book. You know what you want it to be. So that's not to say to disregard feedback, but to really learn to balance, to trust yourself a little bit. And, so to kind of be open to that professional feedback, but also to be, committed and trust yourself to know what's best for your story at the same time.
That's awesome. I mean, another way to say that is to listen to your own intuition. Right?
There's lots of opportunities for gut checks in publishing, and that does not end. I think a lot of times people like to think that once you find a home for your first book, it ends, but that's not true at all. So it will serve you for your entire career if you can kind of do those gut checks with yourself where, well, do I need to be more open to this feedback, or is there a deeper reason that this is not resonating and I need to maybe it isn't as strong as it should be yet, but instead of taking this advice on how to get there, maybe I need to find another path that would be more true to my story to get it there.
So smart. Great advice. I love how you put that. I love the parenting analogy as well. I can relate to that one. So before we wrap up, reading wise, what kind of stuff do you like to read, and have you read anything good recently?
I love to read. I mean, I think my books get classified as book club fiction, and I think I do follow the advice of writing what I like to read, because I love books that make you want to talk about them as soon as you set them down. And I really do love women's fiction and suspense and just mainstream contemporary fiction. One of my favorite books that I read recently that is going to be out this month is called The Invisible Husband of Frick Island by Colleen Oakley. And I am so excited for that book to come out later this month. It's about, have you read it?
No, not yet. I've seen people posting about it, but I haven't had a chance yet.
It's not out yet, so it makes sense that you haven't read it. But I happened to we did a joint event together earlier this spring, and I happened to get an early copy. And it's about this little island in the Chesapeake Bay where this woman's husband was a sailor, and he's been lost at sea. And to deal with her grief, she sort of just pretends like he's still with her. And everyone on the island is going along with it. So this journalist comes over, and like this entire island is acting like this person is there who is not there.
Oh, wow.
And it's so heartwarming and quirky and heartbreaking and at the same time. And it's just all the things I love in a novel, and I highly recommend it.
Oh, perfect. I'm going to watch out for that one. So before we wrap up, anything I haven't asked you that you wanted to make sure to mention?
I don't think so. I think you covered the essence of the book really well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you say, it's book club fiction. So if anyone has a book club that they'd like for you to join, I know you love doing those kind of events, right?
Oh, that's true. I guess that's what I should say is that, yes, if you do have a book club for some reason, or even a writing group where you're writing this kind of fiction or women's fiction, I am available to meet, especially in person. Things are still a little dicey right now, but I'm available to meet virtually, whichever method you like. And there's contact information on my website, and I'm all over the place on social media too. It's very easy to find me.
And I also know, like you say, sometimes at conferences, you'll do like query critiques or different workshops and stuff. And I would encourage people, if they ever see you on the agenda somewhere, they're totally worth their time as a writer. I think you do a great job with those.
Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, I have quite a few virtual conferences coming up this year, so you could attend those from anywhere.
There you go. And if people want to see where you are and how to stay in touch and check where you're going to be, on Instagram, you're at Jessica Strawser Author, and then your website, jessicastrawser.com. And I imagine if they sign up your newsletter, they'll also be able to stay up to date with where you're going to be, right?
Yes, and I'm also at Jessica Strawser Author on Facebook and at Jessica Strawser on Twitter.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.